As the U.S. Senate debates tonight on a timeline for withdrawing our troops in Iraq, we are calling on Senator Coleman to put Minnesota ahead of the President, to put the will of the American people ahead of partisan politics, and to put the troops who are serving our country so courageously ahead of a failed war strategy. The time has come to set a timeline for bringing our troops home from Iraq. We heard it firsthand last week. We heard that the Iraqi government met only 8 out of 18 U.S. set benchmarks for progress. And more than 4 years after this war started, we've lost more than 3,500 American soldiers, tens of thousands of American servicemen and women have been wounded, and our standing in the world has been diminished. The strategy for the war in Iraq has failed. We need to change course now. We need to bring our troops home, but Senator Coleman is still standing in the way. He has consistently supported the President on this war. He has voted 4 times against a timetable for bringing our troops home. Last week he said again that he will not support a timeline. And today he is standing with his Republican colleagues to filibuster a change of course in Iraq. Who is more important to Senator Coleman, the President or the people of Minnesota? Tomorrow the Senate will move toward an up or down vote on a timeline for withdrawal. 7 in 10 Americans support withdrawal of troops by April of next year. The American people want a timeline for withdrawal. They don't want an open-ended arrangement that lets the President keep the troops over there as long as he feels like it. They want definite steps, a timeline for the President to achieve them, and consequences if he doesn't. Senator Coleman should listen to the people of Minnesota. He should stop the filibuster and support a timeline for bringing our troops home from Iraq. The time for talk is over. The time for action is now. If Senator Coleman really believes in changing course in Iraq, he would allow an up or down vote on the only proposal that has a binding timeline for bringing the troops home. We as voters in the state of Minnesota, we as citizens of the United States of America, call on Senator Coleman to support the troops by supporting a timeline for bringing them home from Iraq now. It's the right thing to do, and this is the right time to do it.
The Senate is staying in session all night tonight, debating a timeline for withdrawal from the war in Iraq. It's time to change the course in Iraq, but the President refuses to listen to the overwhelming majority of Americans who now support bringing our troops home next year. And standing right there next to him is Senator Norm Coleman. From the start of this war, Senator Coleman has stood with the President. Over the years, he said that we have to stand with the President no matter what. And now, 4 years later, we've lost more than 3,500 American soldiers. Iraq has descended into civil war, and President Bush refuses to change course. President Bush has proven beyond any doubt that he won't listen to Congress or to the American people unless he is forced to. And apparently Senator Coleman doesn't want to listen either. Last week, Coleman was quoted in USA Today as saying, "If I took a poll in my state right now, Minnesotans would say, 'Get out of Iraq right now.' I'm not going to support that because I know it would be a disaster." A senator from the state of Minnesota said that listening to his constituents would be a disaster. Senator Coleman says he wants a change of mission in Iraq, but he refuses to abandon this president and his failed war strategy. He said he won't support a firm timeline for withdrawing our troops from Iraq. And now he has to decide. Is he part of this Republican filibuster of the Levin-Reed Amendment, which would set a firm timeline for bringing our troops home? Senator Coleman says we should give the president until September. But the question is, how many more Septembers are we going to give this president? How many more Septembers should we trust this president to change his strategy in Iraq? How many more Septembers is Senator Coleman going to blindly trust this president who has led this war into disaster? And how long can we stand with a senator who thinks that listening to Minnesotans would be a disaster? If Senator Coleman believes that we need a change of mission in Iraq, then he should support an up or down vote in the Senate on a timeline for withdrawal, and support the only proposal with a binding timeline for bringing our troops home. The time for talk is over. The time for waiting to see how things go is over. The time for action is now. And a Republican filibuster of bringing our troops home is not going to cut it for Minnesotans. We're here as Minnesotans asking Senator Coleman to get out of the way of changing course in Iraq. Come next year, when Minnesotans go to the ballot box to elect a senator, they will remember where Norm Coleman stood. So tonight, he has a choice. He can stand by the president, or he can stand by Minnesotans. Senator Coleman should put Minnesotans and the troops fighting this war in Iraq ahead of the president. He should allow an up or down vote on a timeline for withdrawal from Iraq. He should support the only binding timeline for withdrawal of troops from Iraq. And after he chooses sides on one of the most important issues facing us today, Minnesotans will remember just where he was standing when it mattered most. Senator Coleman has changed his mind for far more trivial reasons than this. This is the right thing to do, so it's morally correct. It's the thing that Minnesotans want, so it's politically opportunistic. And if Norm Coleman won't change his mind now, then what will it take for him to change his mind? And if Norm Coleman won't stand with Minnesotans now, then when will he stand with us? Senator Coleman, vote to allow an up or down vote. Thank you.